Imagine waking up every day to go to a job you hate only because the paycheck is good. You stare at the clock, willing the hours to move faster. You smile in meetings while your soul whispers, there has to be more than this. There is. I've met people with 6-figure salaries and 7-figure sadness. They wear expensive suits, but their dreams are bankrupt because somewhere along the way they chose money over meaning. There's a moment in life when we all stand at a crossroads, somewhere between who we are and who we're supposed to become. And it usually starts with a question, what should I do with my life? For many, especially those fresh out of college, that question quickly warps into a more seductive version, what should I do to make the most money? It sounds smart, even responsible, but it's the wrong question. It's like asking a compass to point to wealth instead of true north. And when money becomes your compass, you may find yourself moving fast, achieving things, collecting titles. But you'll also discover that you're deeply off course. A college graduate once sat across from a successful entrepreneur and asked that very question, what job should I take to make the most money? The entrepreneur paused, smiled gently and said, you're asking the wrong question. Ask, what can I do that makes me feel alive, even if no one pays me? And that one sentence holds more truth than most textbooks ever will. Because what makes us come alive is far more sustainable than what makes us rich. The problem with using money as your compass is that it's never satisfied. It always wants more, and it never tells you why. It can lure you into careers that look good on paper but feel empty in practice. It can lead you into boardrooms filled with accolades but devoid of meaning. It can make you successful by the world's standards and yet make you a stranger to yourself. We're taught early on that success is measured in salaries, square footage, and stock options. But no one tells you that you can have all those things and still feel like you're running on a treadmill, exhausted, uninspired, and empty. When profit becomes your purpose, you sacrifice your passion. And passion is the spark that sets everything else on fire. It's the difference between showing up and being fully present. It's the heartbeat behind every act of greatness. Think about the people who have truly inspired you, not the ones who drove the fanciest cars or lived in the tallest buildings, but the ones who lit up when they spoke about their work, the ones who carried a deep sense of conviction. Who made you believe in something bigger? Those people weren't chasing paychecks, they were chasing purpose. And ironically, that's what made them valuable. Because excellence is magnetic. When you love what you do it better. You care more, you push further, you think deeper, you show up earlier and stay later. Not because you have to, but because you want to. That kind of energy can't be faked, it's contagious. And people pay attention to it, opportunities find it, money follows it. The truth is, money's a byproduct, it's not the goal. It's the echo of value you've created, not the reason you create. And when you flip that script, everything changes. You stop asking what's in it for me and start asking what can I give? You stop counting hours and start making hours count. You stop chasing promotions and start chasing mastery. And people notice, they always do. Now, this isn't some naive fantasy where love alone pays the bills. Purpose doesn't mean poverty, it means alignment. It means using your gifts in the service of something greater than yourself. And that has always been the fastest route to not just income, but impact. The artists, inventors, teachers, entrepreneurs, the ones who changed the game, they didn't do it because it was the safest bet. They did it because they couldn't imagine doing anything else. And because of that, the world couldn't imagine being without them. Purpose is fuel. It doesn't run out when things get hard. It doesn't disappear when the market shifts. It holds you steady when everything around you feels uncertain. It's what makes work worth doing and life worth living. And yet so many people give it up for security, for approval, for a steady paycheck that becomes a silent prison. And then they wonder why they're exhausted, why they dread Monday, why they feel like they're losing themselves, one spreadsheet at a time. But the good news is, it's never too late to recalibrate, to ask yourself not what job pays the most, but what calling makes you feel most alive. To start listening not to what the world expects of you, but to what your soul whispers when the world goes quiet. Because deep down, you already know. You've always known. It's the thing you do, even if no one noticed, the thing that energizes you when everything else drains you. The thing that feels less like work and more like breathing. When you align with that, the road ahead may not be the straightest or the easiest, but it will be yours, authentically, unapologetically yours. And in that alignment, something beautiful happens. You begin to create with depth, lead with clarity, and serve with heart. You stop trying to impress and you start trying to express. That shift is where true fulfillment lives. Don't let your life be a resume of regrets. Don't become someone who had all the right credentials but never answered the call. If you measure your life by the dollars you earned, you'll always feel like something's missing. But if you measure it by the difference you made, the lives you touched, the values you stood for, the joy you felt, then money becomes what it was always meant to be, a result, not a reason. So to anyone wondering what path to take, start here. What makes you feel fully, truly alive? Follow that, trust that. And remember, when passion leads, profit follows. When impact is your North Star, abundance is never far behind. Because the most powerful life isn't built on chasing money, it's built on becoming who you were meant to be. In 2022, Gallup revealed something we've known in our gut for a long time. Over half the workforce is disengaged. They're showing up, yes. They're logging in, attending meetings, nodding at all the right times, but inside, they've already checked out. They're not lazy, they're not ungrateful, they're just disconnected. Disconnected from the very thing that gives work its meaning, purpose. Let's stop and think about that. 50%, that's not a statistic, it's a silent crisis. These are people with families, dreams, and ambitions. People who once had hope that their work would matter. Somewhere along the way, they lost sight of why they do what they do. And when that why fades, so does the spark. So does the joy. So does the drive that keeps us going when things get hard. The problem isn't a lack of effort, it's a lack of meaning. We've built a society that chases outcomes, promotions, bonuses, retirement plans. We dangle dollars like carrots and wonder why people burn out, why they walk away, or worse, why they stay and settle. But money, no matter how good it feels in the beginning, loses its luster when the work itself feels hollow. Imagine this. A nurse on the night shift, exhausted, running on coffee and adrenaline. It's her third 12-hour shift in a row. The hospital is understaffed, her back aches, her feet are sore. But then she steps into a room and sees a patient's eyes light up because she remembered their name, she held their hand, she made them feel human. In that moment, she's reminded, this isn't just a job. This is a calling. That spark, that's purpose, and it will carry you farther than any paycheck ever could. Now picture someone who became a nurse for a different reason. Maybe the salary looked promising, maybe it was a stable path, but without that deeper connection, the long hours feel longer, the patients feel like tasks, the work becomes a grind, and before long, the question starts to bubble up. Is this really worth it? Purpose doesn't guarantee ease. It doesn't protect us from hard days or hard choices, but it gives those hard days meaning. It transforms endurance into devotion. When your heart is in what you do, you don't just survive, you persist, you grow, you give, you pour yourself into the work because it aligns with who you are, not just what you earn. Think about teachers, the ones who light up when a child finally grasps a difficult concept, who spend their own money on supplies, who show up early and stay late, not for recognition, but because they care. They don't do it for the paycheck. In many places, the paycheck alone wouldn't justify the effort. But they stay because they're invested in something bigger than themselves. They believe in the power of knowledge. They believe in potential. They believe in change. And when we believe, truly believe in the why, we are resilient. We are unstoppable. That's the paradox of purpose. It's not about us, yet it fuels us. When we align with a purpose that reaches beyond our own needs, we discover strength we didn't know we had. Money may be a reason to start, but it will never be enough to sustain. The moment the workload increases or the compensation lags, money loses its grip. You can't deposit meaning into your bank account, but without it, you'll go bankrupt in a different way, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. Purpose is the soul's currency. And unlike money, it doesn't inflate, depreciate, or run dry when the market dips. If you've ever felt burnt out, ask yourself, what am I working toward? Who am I serving? Why does this matter? The answers may not be immediate, but they are essential. We can do the same job for decades, but without purpose, we're just clocking in and out. With it, we are building something. Purpose isn't about having the perfect job. It's about seeing the value in what you do, even when it's messy, even when it's hard. It's the inner conviction that says, this matters, even when no one sees it, even when it doesn't pay well, even when I feel tired. That kind of inner fire is what gives us longevity, not just in careers, but in life. Too many people wait for permission to live with purpose. They wait for a sign, for validation, for the perfect opportunity. But purpose isn't something you find, it's something you commit to, something you decide. It can grow from what breaks your heart or what lights you up. It's not always flashy, but it's always powerful. And the best part, purpose is contagious. When you meet someone who is driven by something deeper, you feel it. Their energy lifts the room. Their passion pulls you in. They don't need to convince you with a pitch or a paycheck. Their presence speaks louder than any job description. They remind us of what's possible when we stop chasing what we can earn and start pursuing what we can contribute. We live in a world that measures success by numbers, but the most meaningful success can't be measured. It can only be felt. A life of purpose leaves an impact that outlives us. It creates ripples that spread far beyond the cubicle or the paycheck or the title on the door. So if you're tired of pretending, tired of pushing through, tired of the disconnect, start by reconnecting. Reconnect to why you chose this path. And if you didn't choose it for the right reasons, it's never too late to start again. Not to quit, but to realign, to ask better questions, to pursue work that feeds your soul, not just your wallet. Because when we work with purpose, we don't just get more done, we come alive. And in a world full of people just getting by, aliveness is the most radical, most inspiring thing we can offer. Your career is your legacy, not your lottery ticket. It's easy to forget this in a world that shouts at us every day, get the promotion, make 6 figures, get ahead. The noise is deafening. And over time, it convinces us that our worth is tied to our net worth, that our value is measured by the size of our office, the number of zeros on our paycheck, the title printed on our business card. But let's pause for a moment and ask ourselves something much deeper, something far more important than what we do for a living. Why we do it. Because the truth is, no one at a funeral stands up and says, she earned a lot. They say, she made a difference. That shift from what we earn to what we leave behind is everything. Because we only get one life, one shot, and we spend more than a third of it working. That's not just a job. It's a chapter of our legacy being written every single day. And the people around us, whether we realize it or not, are reading that chapter. Our kids are watching, our friends are watching, our colleagues are watching. And someday, when we're not here anymore, our story will be told. The question is, what will it say? Will it say that you followed your heart? That you had the courage to pursue purpose over comfort, that you lifted others as you climbed, that you treated people with compassion, integrity, and generosity, even when no one was looking? Or will it say that you played it safe, that you stayed in a job you hated for a paycheck that looked good on paper, but starved your soul, that you kept your head down, ticked boxes, followed orders, and waited for retirement to start truly living? This isn't a judgment, it's a wake-up call. Because somewhere along the way, we got sold a lie. The lie that work is just a means to an end, that we go to work to make money and money is the ultimate goal. But deep down, we know better. We know that fulfillment doesn't come from earning more. It comes from serving more. It comes from knowing that the work we do matters, that it leaves people better than we found them, that it echoes beyond the boardroom, the Zoom call, the spreadsheet. Contribution is the currency of legacy. Think about the people you admire most. Maybe it's a teacher who changed the course of your life, a coach who believed in you when no one else did, a leader who stood up for what was right instead of what was easy. Now ask yourself, were they the richest? Were they the ones with the most impressive titles? Or were they the ones who showed up day after day with passion, integrity, and a commitment to something bigger than themselves? The most powerful legacies are built quietly, humbly, in moments that rarely make headlines. The late night calls to a teammate who's struggling, the tough conversations that protect the culture of a team, the countless acts of mentorship, kindness, and honesty that ripple out into the world, unseen but deeply felt. And yes, I know there are bills to pay. I know we live in a real world with real pressures and real responsibilities, but let's not confuse necessity with destiny. Making money to survive is essential. Chasing money to feel worthy is a trap. Your career can pay your bills and fulfill your purpose. It's not either/or. It's both/and. But only if you're willing to stop seeing it as a lottery ticket and start seeing it as a canvas. Because here's the hard truth: comfort is seductive. It whispers in your ear and tells you to stay put, to not rock the boat, to take the job that looks good on LinkedIn, even if it feels hollow inside. But your soul knows when you're out of alignment. You wake up tired, you count the hours until Friday, you start to shrink instead of grow, and before long, you forget who you really are. But the fire never really dies, it just waits. It waits for the moment you remember that your career isn't supposed to be a cage, it's supposed to be a calling. Legacy isn't something we build at the end of our life, it's something we build every single day, in every decision we make. It's built in the way we speak to the intern and the CEO alike. It's built in how we treat people when there's nothing in it for us. It's built in what we choose to stand for and what we refuse to stand by and watch happen. It doesn't take a heroic act to leave a legacy. It takes consistency, it takes alignment, it takes the courage to say, I will not live a life of quiet resignation. I will not trade purpose for comfort. I will not die with my potential still locked inside me. Every career tells a story, and like all good stories, it has a beginning, a middle, and an end. But the best stories, the ones that get told long after the author is gone, are the ones that are lived with heart. They're the ones that aren't just about climbing a ladder, but about building a bridge. They're the ones that don't end with applause, but with impact. So what will your story say? That you settled or that you soared? That you chased approval or that you chased meaning? That you made a living or that you made a difference? Because that's the choice we all face. Every meeting, every project, every conversation, we get to choose the kind of legacy we're building. One paycheck at a time, one interaction at a time, one courageous decision at a time. It's not about being famous. It's about being remembered for the right reasons, for being the one who cared, the one who helped, the one who dared to live fully, serve deeply, and leave this world just a little better than they found it. So if you've been waiting for a sign, this is it. Don't waste another year climbing a ladder that's leaning against the wrong wall. Don't silence your passion because you're scared of failing. Don't trade your purpose for someone else's approval. You were not born to fit into a job description, you were born to create one, to carve a path that's yours, to do work that matters, not just to your boss or your shareholders, but to your soul. Because in the end, your legacy won't be built on what you earned. It'll be built on what you gave, who you became, how you made people feel, and whether or not the world is better because you were in it. So build something worth remembering. Here's a truth that doesn't always make the headlines, but it should. Real fulfillment doesn't come from power, possessions, or prestige. It comes from something far more profound, something our very biology is wired to crave: service to others. It's easy to think the world revolves around individual achievements, status updates, and climbing ladders. But underneath all that noise, there's a quiet, undeniable truth. We are at our best, our happiest, and our most alive when we are useful to others. Not when we're seen, but when we see. Not when we're praised, but when we praise. Not when we win, but when we lift someone else up. Imagine for a moment the last time you did something for someone else. Not because you had to, not because you were asked, but because you saw a need and you filled it. Maybe you helped a colleague finish a project without being asked. Maybe you stayed up late to talk to a friend going through something heavy. Maybe you paid for someone's coffee behind you in line just because. Whatever it was, I bet you remember how it made you feel. That glow, that warmth, that subtle grounding sense that for a moment you were exactly where you were supposed to be, doing exactly what you were meant to do. It's not a coincidence. It's not just a feel-good moment. It's biology. It's the way we are designed. Helping others releases oxytocin, serotonin, and dopamine, those beautiful chemicals that create connection, joy, and purpose. It lights up the reward centers of our brain in a way that material success simply can't. It's not just psychology, it's human nature. At Harvard, researchers studied workplaces to understand what really drives satisfaction and productivity. What they found was both simple and revolutionary. Employees who focused on helping others were not only happier, they were more effective. Their teams performed better and their relationships improved. Why? Because service creates a culture of meaning. And where there's meaning, there's motivation. When you know that what you do matters to someone else, you show up differently. You work with intention, you care with depth, you feel like you belong. We're often taught that success is about climbing, but the paradox is this: the higher you climb, the more opportunity you have to reach down and pull others up. And that's where the magic is. That's where fulfillment lives. Think of someone like Fred Rogers. He wasn't flashy. He didn't live for applause or headlines, but he became one of the most beloved figures in American history. Why? Because he dedicated his life to serving children, to teaching kindness, to showing up day after day with love, patience, and compassion. He didn't need a fortune to make an impact. He didn't need millions of followers to be influential. He just needed a mission and a heart committed to others. It's tempting to believe that only people like him, people with platforms or special talents, can make a difference, but that belief sells all of us short. Because the truth is, you don't need to be famous to be fulfilled. You just need to help someone every day in a way only you can. That's it. That's the whole formula. It's not complicated, it's not flashy, but it's transformative. You have something no one else has, your unique mix of experiences, insights, voice, and heart. Somewhere out there is a person who needs exactly what you have to offer. Maybe it's a word of encouragement, maybe it's your listening ear, maybe it's your skills, your time, your perspective, whatever it is, it matters more than you know. When you give it freely, you not only lift them, you elevate yourself. That's the beautiful paradox of service. It looks selfless, but it nourishes the soul like nothing else. It's not a loss, it's a gain. Every act of generosity, every moment of empathy, every instance of going out of your way for someone, it shapes you, it carves depth into your character, it expands your heart, it teaches you the kind of joy that can't be bought or bargained for, only experienced. So the real question is not what can I get, but who can I serve? Because when we shift the focus away from self and onto others, something incredible happens. We become more of ourselves, we come alive. Our work stops being just about paychecks and promotions and starts being about purpose. I've seen people burn out not because they work too hard, but because they work without meaning. And I've seen others work tirelessly day and night and walk away energized because they knew their work made someone else's life better. The difference is not in the hours, it's in the why, it's in the impact, it's in the service. Fulfillment is not a finish line. It's not something you reach once you've achieved enough. It's something you live into every day with every choice. It's in the way you show up for your team. It's in the kindness you extend to a stranger. It's in the phone call you return, the smile you offer, the support you give without needing recognition. And yes, it can be exhausting. Service can be messy. It can be thankless. It requires patience, humility, and resilience. But it's also sacred, it's powerful, and it's worth it. Every time. Because at the end of our lives, we won't measure success in trophies or titles. We'll measure it in moments, in lives touched, in hearts changed, in the quiet satisfaction of knowing that we didn't just take up space, we made a difference. So choose that life. Not the loudest life, not the most popular life, but the life that leaves people better than you found them. The life that gives more than it takes. The life that makes service not just something you do, but part of who you are. Because in that life you will find what so many are chasing, but few truly discover: real, lasting, soul-deep fulfillment. And once you find it, you'll never want to live any other way. Have you ever heard someone say, "I'm just going to stay until I save enough to quit"? Maybe you've even said it yourself. It's such a reasonable thing to believe. Stay a little longer, stack some money, and then finally walk away, and yet years pass. 5, 10, sometimes a lifetime, and they're still there, still waiting, still stuck, not because they couldn't leave, but because they unknowingly walked into a trap disguised as opportunity. It starts innocently enough. A new job, a promotion, a raise, that first paycheck that makes you feel like you've made it. You think, now I can breathe. And maybe for a moment you do. You upgrade your apartment, you buy the car you've always wanted, you start dining in better restaurants, you take the vacation you used to only dream about. It feels good. Because you earned it, right? You worked hard and now you're being rewarded. But there's something hidden in that reward: expectation. Every new dollar you make whispers a seductive promise that more money will solve everything, that it will finally give you the life you want. But what it often does is build a lifestyle that slowly becomes a prison. You start needing that paycheck, not just to survive, but to maintain. You don't own the lifestyle owns you. And the chains? They're gold, comfortable, prestigious, impressive to others, but chains nonetheless. The world tells us to chase success and money becomes the scorecard. But the problem with chasing money is that it never tells you when to stop. It's a game with no finish line. You hit one financial goal and suddenly there's another just beyond it. One more bonus, one more raise, one more year. It never ends. And the saddest part is that many people only realize this when it's far too late, when they've spent decades building a life that doesn't reflect who they really are. This isn't about vilifying money. Money can be useful, even powerful. It can provide safety, security, access, and experiences. But when it becomes the primary reason you stay in a job you hate or a life that exhausts you, it stops being a tool and becomes a trap. And here's the paradox. The pursuit of money, which we believe will give us freedom, often takes it away. We trade our time, our energy, our peace of mind, not just for a paycheck, but for the illusion of stability. We commit ourselves to roles we don't care about, companies that don't value us, and routines that drain us, all for a sense of safety that, deep down, feels hollow. We all want to feel safe. We all want to take care of our families, to build a future that feels secure. But there's a difference between building a foundation and building a cage. One supports you, the other confines you. And what determines the difference is not how much money you have, but how intentionally you live your life. We have to stop asking how much money do I need to be free and start asking what does freedom look like for me? Because freedom isn't a number in your bank account. It's not a title on your business card. It's not a vacation once a year to escape the life you return to on Monday. Freedom is waking up and deciding how you will spend your energy. Freedom is doing work that aligns with your values. Freedom is saying no without guilt and yes without fear. But getting there requires courage. Because walking away from a high-paying job feels reckless when the world tells you that success is defined by your salary. Saying no to a promotion can feel foolish when others would kill for that position. But what's the cost of saying yes to something that slowly kills your joy? What's the cost of sacrificing your well-being for the sake of optics? There is a moment, sometimes quiet, sometimes earth-shattering, when you realize that the life you're living no longer fits who you are, that the money isn't worth the anxiety, that the meetings, the pressure, the politics, it all feels meaningless. That's when the golden handcuffs become visible. And that's when you must decide, will you loosen the grip or keep tightening the lock? The people we admire most, those who seem to move with purpose and authenticity, they aren't necessarily the richest. They're the ones who figured out what truly matters to them and had the courage to prioritize it. They know that freedom isn't about having everything. It's about needing less of what doesn't fulfill you. They live intentionally, deliberately, not chasing money, but using it as a tool, not a master. Let's stop glorifying hustle that leads to burnout. Let's stop romanticizing wealth at the expense of well-being. Let's stop telling ourselves that we'll quit after the next bonus, the next milestone, the next year. Because the longer we wait, the harder it becomes. The more you build around the life you don't want, the more difficult it is to tear it down. You don't have to abandon all financial ambition, but you do have to ask yourself why you're chasing it. What do you think it will give you? And is there a way to live that life now, not later? Because freedom, real freedom, begins when you stop asking for permission and start living on your own terms, not dictated by a paycheck, but powered by your purpose. So if you find yourself saying, I'm just going to stay until I save enough to quit, stop. Ask yourself, am I already in the trap? And if the answer is yes, know this, you can still get out. You can make different choices. You can redefine success. You can reclaim your energy and your time and your joy. Because life is not meant to be endured, it's meant to be lived. And no amount of money is worth giving that up. There's a story I've always held close. It's not dramatic in its delivery, but it carries a quiet kind of power, the kind that can shake the foundation of how we see ourselves. A janitor at NASA, sweeping the same hallways day after day, was once asked what he did for a living. His answer wasn't, I clean floors, or I take out the trash. He said, I'm helping put a man on the moon. And in that moment, the world shifted, at least for anyone who truly listened. He wasn't playing a role. He wasn't reciting a motivational line. That was identity. That was purpose. That was someone who refused to be defined by a title printed on a name tag or a number on a paycheck. This story isn't about NASA. It's not even about the janitor. It's about the universal truth that every one of us craves to matter. And not just in the eyes of others, but in the deep, private space within ourselves, where we decide if we're enough, if we belong, if we're contributing something that truly counts. Yet how often do we reduce our value to the paycheck we bring home every 2 weeks? How often do we internalize the whispers of society that tell us the size of our salary reflects the size of our success? Somewhere along the way, we started believing the lie that our net worth is our self-worth, that unless we're climbing a ladder, chasing a promotion, out-earning our neighbor, we're somehow falling behind. But here's the truth. You are more than your paycheck. You always were, and you always will be. When they remember the janitor's answer, so profound, is not what he said, it's what he saw. He saw himself as part of something larger. He saw how the small task in front of him connected to the massive mission beyond him. He didn't see mopping floors, he saw making history. And he chose to see it that way. He claimed his place in the story. That is the power we all have. That is the choice we can all make. To connect what we do with why we do it, because when your work is aligned with your values, your gifts, your voice, suddenly your job stops being a transaction. It becomes a contribution. Suddenly Monday mornings don't feel like the start of a prison sentence. They feel like the opening scene of a story only you can write. Too many people wake up each day dreading their own lives. They go to jobs that drain them, surrounded by people who don't see them, doing work that doesn't speak to who they are. They do it because it's what they think they're supposed to do, because the paycheck arrives on time, because the benefits are decent, because it's safe, but deep down they know something's off, that the hours they give away don't feel worth the price, that the applause they chase doesn't fill the emptiness, that the ladder they're climbing may be leaning against the wrong wall. We are not machines. We are not output units. We are not walking resumes. We are human beings with a pulse, with purpose, with potential. And our work should reflect that. It should reflect who we are, not just what we do. And no, that doesn't mean everyone has to quit their job tomorrow and go live in a cabin and write poetry. It means we have to start asking better questions. Not what do you do, but why do you do it? Not how much do you make, but how much does it matter? Because there is dignity in all work, but there is divinity in work that aligns with who we are at our core. When you do work that reflects your values, your worth is no longer tied to a number. You don't have to keep proving your value to anyone because you've already accepted it yourself. And when that shift happens, when you stop working for money and start working for meaning, everything changes. You become unstoppable because people who are connected to purpose don't burn out, they burn brighter. They don't chase validation, they radiate it. They don't just make a living, they make a difference. Think of the people who truly inspired you, the ones whose presence made you feel seen, the ones whose work lifted others. They weren't always the richest, they weren't always the ones in the corner office, but they were always the ones who were deeply, unapologetically alive in what they did. They were rooted, grounded, and they knew something that too many forget, that true wealth isn't found in what we earn, but in what we give, in what we build, in what we leave behind. Even the janitor at NASA didn't change the world by earning more. He changed the world because he saw that what he was already doing mattered. And when you believe that, when you see yourself as an essential part of something bigger, you show up differently. You walk taller, you speak clearer, you dream bigger, because you're not just chasing a living, you're living a mission. It's not about having the most glamorous job, the highest salary, or the most prestigious title. It's about bringing the best of who you are to whatever you do. It's about realizing that you're already enough, that your contribution, however big or small it may look on the outside, has the power to shift something on the inside for you and for those you serve. So let the world keep chasing numbers. Let it keep glorifying titles. You live for something deeper. You find the thread that ties your effort to your essence. You be the person who shows others that it's not what you do that defines your value, but how you do it and why. Because when you know your worth, you stop negotiating it. You stop begging for permission to matter. You start living like someone who belongs in the story of progress, of innovation, of hope. And maybe one day when someone asks you what you do, you won't answer with your job title, Maybe you'll answer like the janitor did, not because it sounds good, but because you believe it. Because you feel it in your bones. Because your work, your life, your reason is bigger than a paycheck. It always was. Don't let money be the loudest voice in your decision making. Let meaning lead. Ask yourself, would I still do this if I didn't get paid for a month, a year? If the answer is no, then maybe it's time to stop chasing what's easy and start creating what matters. Your future self doesn't want a bank account full of regret. Choose purpose. Choose service. Don't choose a kind of career that sets your heart on fire. Because in the end, the richest people are not those who made the most money. They're the ones who made the most difference.